Now it's time to talk about classes versus object. Specifically, what is the difference between them? This is a point of confusion for many beginners, and it's something that you really just have to work at, and once the light bulb comes on, you'll be able to do object-oriented programming. So what's a class? A class is nothing except a blueprint for creating an object. So classes and objects are related to each other, but a class defines what an object looks like and how it behaves. That is to say that the class defines the data members that keep track of data, like account number, balance, and function members are the verbs. They're the things that do things on the class, like deposit, withdraw, transfer. It's important to remember that the class code on its own is just a definition. We can use it to create one-to-many object instances. A lot of people like to think of this as the difference between a blueprint and a building. A blueprint is the definition for a building. If we want to define a class, all we need to do is specify the following items. First, the accessor. This determines who may use the class. There are several accessors. For beginners, we're only going to focus on two, public and private. The public accessor means that anybody can use the class. The next thing is the class keyword. This is what tells C# that the upcoming code block is a class, and it keeps everything together for us. The third thing is the name of the class. This is what we're going to use to create object instances. So when I want to create a class for a bank account, I'm going to tell the compiler, get me a bank account. The last thing is the code block that contains all of the data, those are the adjectives, and the function members, those are the verbs, the class has access to. And the class is really the noun. Here's an example of a class definition that represents a course at a school. Public is the accessor, number 1. That means that any other class can use this class. Then we have our class keyword, part 2. And then the third part is the name. Now if we're representing a course, a good name for the class is course. The fourth part is the code block that contains the definition. What defines a course? And we're going to get into this property syntax later, but basically for now, let's just say we have two string properties that define a course. One is the instructor name, the other is the name of the course itself. If we want to use a class, we need to instantiate it as an object. And instantiate is the process of creating an object and loading it into the computer's memory so that we can use it. Each object is its own instance. This is a really important concept. Class is the template, object is the real thing. To instantiate the object, we need to use a keyword in C# called new. New takes a class definition and creates a real object that we can work with. We often assign that object to a variable so that we can pass it around and manipulate it. Once we have that object inside a variable, we can access its data and other members using what we call the dot notation. So let's look at some code. We're going to take our course class that we defined on the last slide, and we're going to create a variable. And instead of int or string or any of those other simple types we've talked about before, this time we're going to create a variable of type course that we created. This is our custom type. It represents a course at your school. Now this course, I want it to define a biology class. So I'm going to give it a name. Type course, name of variable biology, set that variable equal to a new course. And then what C# does is it goes out and it looks at the class definition of course. And it says, oh, I see that you have two string properties, a course name and an instructor name. Let me create an object that has those properties on it. Now in the next line here, we can set these property values. We can manipulate this data. So I can say biology, which is the name of our variable that contains an empty course, biology.coursename. I would like the object that is in the biology variable, I would like to take his course name property and set it equal to the string biology 101. Then I would like to take the instructor name of the biology instance and set it to Jane Doe. Then we can drop down and let's create another course. This is one for algebra. It's the same type. It's still a course, but this time it's going to have different data. So what should I name the algebra course? Algebra is a fine name. It's just a variable. I could name this whatever I wanted to. I could name it banana if I wanted to. It wouldn't make much sense. It'd be a bad name. But the variable name is just an alias for one instance of an object. So course algebra equals new course. Load it into memory. Now we have a blank course. Algebra's course name should be equal to the string algebra 1, and algebra's instructor name should be equal to the string Joe Schmo. I was able to write to those properties using the dot notation. I can also read the data back out of those properties. So let's print out courses. And we'll do console.writeLine, substitution 0, tab, substitution 1. And what data would I like to pass in? Well, I would like the course name from the biology object and the instructor name from the biology object. And then on the next line, I want to do the same thing, but this time I want the course name from the algebra object and the instructor name from the algebra object. And we'll see when that runs, it will print out the data that exists inside those objects. It's as simple as that. This is what those objects look like in memory. Before our program's memory, we just had a big box and we had ints and strings and every variable had just one value. When we're working with classes and objects, we still have a variable, just like we did before, except that the value is a complex value. A class can have many types of different data in them. We can intermix strings and integers and decimals and whatever different types we want. We can even embed classes inside other classes. If we were going to create an actual gradebook program, our course class would be just fine, but we might also have a student class that would have the student's ID number and the student's name and their grade. And then on the course class, we might want to have a list of enrolled students. So we could embed the student class as a property on a course. And that's really what this classes and object modeling is all about. We want to take a scenario in the real world and represent those relationships and types in code. And that's what class design is all about. We're going to get deeper into this in the next few lessons. Keep in mind, though, that this part of learning to program is the first major hurdle. This is the hardest part when you're getting started to understand. So I recommend that when you're writing your programs, you draw out the program's memory like I did here. Get a piece of paper out and keep track of all the variables and what is in them. It will make your learning experience much easier.